Hello and welcome to Intercultural Spark, that show about the spark inside you that drives you to spark change in the world through your business or your life projects. My guest today, Taras Lyssenko, I'm not sure if this is a business, a life project, but he does these amazing, crazy things where he recovers World War II airplanes from the bottom of Lake Michigan. So we're going to hear all about that and how he does it and what's coming up this summer where you can see those planes today on Intercultural Spark. Hi, Taras. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's so great to see you. And of course,
thanks for having me here.
My pleasure. And the last time we caught up, it was about 4 years ago when your book was just coming out. And we're going to share that interview where you share actually a lot of great stories in the book, which I know sold tons of copies, not just because my son and I are pictured in here.
Oh, no, that's it. That's why. That's what everybody wants. They want that photograph. Yeah.
I knew it.
They say, who cares about the rest of the book? They don't care.
I'm glad I could help. Yep. So much fun. So Taras and I, we have known each other. I'm not even going to say how many years, but the F4F plane that's O'Hare and the SPD Dauntless that's at Midway Airport. I worked for aviation at the time, and we worked on both those projects to get the airplanes into the airports. And it sounds like you've been doing a lot of recent recoveries in the meantime as well.
Not recoveries. We're there's a lot of loose hanging aircraft out there that need restoration and need to be moved around.
Okay.
Yeah. So the one SPD Dauntless dive bomber at the Kalamazoo Air Zoo is almost complete with its restoration. It was funded by mainly funded by the former CEO of McDonald's, Fred Turner, who you knew. We worked together with him a lot, and it was funded by him. So mostly there was some other funding was needed to complete it, but it's almost done. It'll head to the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum by the end of this year, and then an SPD -1 Dauntless dive bomber was Marine Corps was at the Flying Leathernecks Museum in Miramar, but that closed. So its restoration needs to be complete. So it'll be going to the Kalamazoo Air Zoo probably within the next month to complete its restoration. So that's a great family day trip from Chicago to the Kalamazoo Air Zoo, and you can go see that aircraft and see the one being completed. You can see a Wildcat fighter that we recovered from the lake being restored. So it's a lot of good stuff. And then, and we actually hope to take that one aircraft to the Experimental Aircraft Association Air Ventures at Osh Kosh, Wisconsin, which begins on July 26th.
Oh, that's exciting. They're doing that again this year because that's a big air show and event.
It's a huge air show, 500,000 plus people from all over the world.
Wow. And they're expecting to be just as big this year. That's fantastic.
I hope it is. I hope it is. But people come from all over the world with all kinds of crazy aircraft. It's a lot of fun. It's a good air show. It's another good family day trip or couple day trip. They can camp. I am scheduled to do what's called an air Warbird in Review on July 26th at 1 p.m. in the Warbird area about the whole project for the recovery of all the Lake Michigan aircraft. But the backdrop is going to be a Wildcat fighter that we recovered in 1991 that was restored to flight condition, and a man named Rod Lewis, who owns it now, is supposed to bring it. We're going to have a bunch of people who all were involved with it and restorers, and there'll be book signing afterwards. So it's 1 p.m. on July 26th. We also hope to have that SPD-1 on a truck there for people to see it. And the family of the pilot is planning on, family members of the pilot are planning on attending.
From the World War II pilot who actually flew that plane.
Yes, who lost,
That's really cool.
Crashed in Lake Michigan with it.
Taras, do you just move the planes or do you restore them as well?
I don't restore anything.
Okay.
I don't have the tolerance to that takes artisan people with patience and tolerance. That's not me.
No problem. Well,
I move aircraft around. You got to recover them.
and
Recover
you're
them.
very
Get a crane to put them on a truck, and the truck takes them somewhere. Yeah.
That's so funny. So there you go. So when we look at like that passion inside you or things that drive you, you get to like, find old airplanes, move them, figure out all the logistics. So it's a fascinating
Yeah.
hobby, but that's brought a lot of joy to a lot of people. So we're going to go ahead and turn on that interview. Terrace, is there anything else that you want to share? So I know we'll talk a lot about, you're telling some of the stories that you share in the book, and also just how some of those recoveries happen in our interview. But we did want to catch up. So you are kind enough. Nobody does this anymore. Terrace actually accepts phone calls. Oh my God. Is this a number where people can text you too if they want to find out?
They can text me, WhatsApp, regular phone call on that, WhatsApp on that, text me. There's my email address. The presentations, I do a lot of presentations for everywhere from middle school all the way through higher institutions of education. I think they used to be called that, universities, and museums. So that schedule is picking up. I'm doing one actually tomorrow. I'm doing one for a group, and then I'm doing one for the Michigan Historical Society. And so any group that would like a presentation or would like a Zoom call or anything, it's all about outreach. So
fantastic. And it's really worthwhile. Terrace has some very colorful stories, I would say, just from all the time that we spent putting in airplanes into the airport. So really interesting stuff. And you really tie it well into history. So thank you for the update. And again, that show is coming up. You said it's July. It's coming up soon.
July 26th.
Okay. When's the Kalamazoo Air Show?
It's the experimental aircraft.
Oh, the Air Zoo. Okay, that's the museum, and then this is
the Air Zoo is the museum where they're restoring aircraft. And so, take a family trip to the Air Zoo in Kalamazoo. It's 2.5, 3 hours from Chicago. Osh Kosh, Wisconsin, the July 26th to about August 1st. I'm not sure the exact date. Great day trip for the family. Lots of cool stuff to see. There you have it.
Delighted to be here today with Terrace Lyssenko, my longtime friend who we met over putting an airplane into Midway Airport. Terrace is the founder and owner of A&T Recovery. He also is the proud author of a brand new book that will be available. You can purchase it now, available to get in August, called The Great Navy Birds of Lake Michigan. So Terrace, I'm delighted for you to be here with me. Like I said, we've worked on projects, so I know a little bit about what recovery generally refers to. But for context, can you give us a brief description of what this is about?
People don't realize during World War II, the U.S. Navy had two training aircraft carriers out in Lake Michigan based off of Chicago. And during the 3 years from 1942 to 1945, they had accidents and they lost about 130 aircraft. And those aircraft weren't in the Navy's collection, so we recover them for the Navy. Most people see the aircraft in Midway and they think, oh, that was nothing. They just, put it in here and somebody wrote a check and it was no big deal. And from working on it, no, the mayor's office was involved, the city council was involved, the aviation department was involved, the Navy was involved. Everybody under the sun has their 2 cents, right? And so what I wanted to make sure I documented all this stuff, wrote all the stories, interacted with people such as yourself, Fred Turner from McDonald's, who was the main backer, Lisa Howard from McDonald's, Aaron O'Donnell from the aviation department, Alderman Burke, right? Everybody, the mayor, everybody. I wanted to make sure all people knew who did what, right? Because to me, part of the fun of the whole story is not just looking at this aircraft, it's realizing what it takes to do some of this stuff. And it's not easy, right? It's pretty difficult. So I saved all this stuff and I've been writing the book for years on end. And the weird thing, they say stars line up, right? The weird thing is I sent, little bits to different publishers, probably about 20 different publishers. And then all of a sudden, 2 of them said, yeah, we want to do that book. That book's great. And so I went with the one was the larger distributor, better distributor.
How did you get involved in doing airplane recovery?
We found our first aircraft in 1978. We actually were just scuba divers that like to look for shipwrecks. And then we heard about the aircraft in the lake, and we started looking for the aircraft, and we found one in 1978. And then we did military service in college and things like that. And about 10 years later, we actually set up a business to do it on behalf of museums and collectors and things like that.
Okay, so is that kind of how the business works of it then? You're contracted by the museum, and then you'll go and find the planes and recover them?
Well, in the old days, we actually would contract directly with them, and they didn't have money to pay us, and they used a little-known law, Title 10, United States Code, Section 2572, to exchange. They would give us obsolete equipment, like obsolete military aircraft. That was our payment. It was barter. We did the work for them, and they gave us some junk that they had. But collectors like that junk. They like the old aircraft. They restore them, they fly them, they take them to air shows. So it actually worked really well. The last 10 years or so, we've been doing it by donors. People have donated to it. Very, very important people. Some of the people you met became donors for stuff like that. So.
Okay. So when you go down, so I understand you're using sonar to kind of find the planes, you're recovering the physical plane, but in reading the book, what I found fascinating is I love, it's very, it's sort of very anecdotal, like you're very folksy in the way that you tell the stories of each of the planes, but you also seem to know just really in-depth naval and military history related to the plane, and just the way that you researched the pilots and made them, you could really feel their story. I saw that you connected with families. How did you do all that? How do you even approach doing that to get such deep knowledge about each plane and each person who flew it?
Well, we all study history. We study the, what do you call it? The overall history, right? Is it the macro history, right? What our thing is, we're looking at the micro history. We're looking at what war does to a family, what the effects on an individual person if they crash in Lake Michigan with an aircraft. So the aircraft is part of the overall macro history, but then all those stories that make us human, what we are contained in all the little micro stories. So we like to investigate that, and we like to talk about that, because that's what makes you feel part of the whole effort. Just wow, it was in the war, so what? No, but there was a person that had tragedy with these things. So, and we become part of that story.
Well, and I saw this story. So I was always under the impression, so when we work together, there's the F4F, the Butch O'Hare plane at O'Hare, and then the SBD Dauntless at Midway. And my understanding when we studied it, like people like George Bush Sr. actually had flown and had practiced landing in Lake Michigan. But somehow I always got the story that no pilots ever lost their life. But I was reading the story about Ensign McMinn, who apparently did lose his life in Lake Michigan, if that's correct. It was amazing how you were able to track down his great-great-grandchildren to be able to bring closure to that family.
Yeah, well, I tell people the internet's a wonderful thing. And so how I tracked them down was I took his name, put it into Google, and I got a 1940s census, 1940, right? And his household, it told he was about 20, 21 or something, and he lived with his parents, his sister, whose his brother-in-law had died from something, so his sister with her son had moved back into her parents' home, right? It was kind of hard for a single woman in Texas in those days. And then it had his nephew's name. And so I realized that the nephew would be the only one alive, so I put his nephew's name into Google, and I got an obituary, which named the nephew's offspring. So I put those into Google, and guess where it led me to? LinkedIn.
Of course, sure.
LinkedIn to business people. So I sent a connection request and a message to the people on it, and lo and behold, I get a response back and a message back that says, "How do you know these people?" "Yeah, they're all my relatives," and I was naming his great grandparents and stuff. And so the internet's a wonderful thing. So
yeah. Well, and that's a wonderful story in the book, and the book is really amazing. And for full disclosure, thank you for including the picture of my son and me. We're in front of the Dauntless while it was on display before we put it into the airport. How did the book come about, and how did you find the process of actually getting all these stories into book format?
Well, the first thing is you were very instrumental in getting that aircraft into Midway Airport. You had to deal with me and all the. I'm not known for my politeness when I have an objective or my niceness. I'm kind, but I'm not nice.
No one will be able to tell that from the video. And since you're my guest, I'll just let you talk.
Yeah. I'm kind, not necessarily nice, right? There's a difference between the words, right? And I don't have tolerance for incompetence, obstruction, and everything we deal with bureaucracies, right? So anyway, so there, you were a big part of that because you were the nicer, gentler finesse through people, where I would say, "Oh, shut up," right? Tell people, get lost, right?
Right.
And,
well, that we ended up connected because I was director of promotions for the city's Department of Aviation then. And so I would have been the conduit. You're right. Sort of the conduit for getting the airplane into the airport. But we did have a lot of entities because it was when Midway was being built. So you had all the construction, you had the city, you had aviation, the bureaucracy or the sort of hierarchical structure there. So there was a lot going on. So
yeah, and I was just a former military officer that had an objective, and I didn't care who I stepped on to get it done. Anyway, but so then how the book came about is I'm a documenter. I save every email, everything, and I print them out, I save them, because we always knew at some point the whole collective thing over the past 35 years is a very interesting story.
What's interesting is I had this anthropology professor once who said the definition of an expert is someone who picks a topic that could be very narrow, but just goes really, really deep. And it just strikes me, in having worked with you, but also just reading the stories, that when it comes to this naval aircraft recovery, is there anyone else doing things comparable, or are you really the top? It strikes me that you're sort of the top go-to person on this subject.
Yeah, well, we are. Years ago, there used to be people that would scour the jungles of Southeast Asia for stuff, or the areas in Russia, but that all ended long ago. We're it. We're at A&T Recovery is it. We're the guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I'm sorry, I just cut you off. I didn't mean to do that, but I want to hear, because I'm just thinking, so a lot of the people that I work with, they tend to be 50 plus. They tend to have this vast experience of work that they've done. They're kind of looking and turning, how do we communicate? How do we leverage all that information? And one thing I noticed with you, it's how do you leverage it, and then in the new communication styles. But I was looking at some of the projects that you worked on, and sometimes people try something, it doesn't work first try, they're on to the next thing. And you've got projects where it actually took like 2 or 3 years to get the approvals that you needed. And I know we were joking about your outgoing and persistent personality. And I have to admit, I'm not sure if patience is one of the things I would have said, oh, that's right, Terrace, he's that really patient guy. But then I look at the persistence.
No, I'm not.
I know. So how did you just manage through that? Because I saw projects where, I even know for a fact that when we had the airplane at O'Hare, I got a call one time from one of the naval entities, I don't remember which, and they couldn't sign the lease with us for the plane until we proved that the city of Chicago existed. That was the part that was missing. We needed documentation to show that Chicago existed. And so that is one of the things you're like, wait, what? So, and you lived that through all these projects. How did you keep focused on the big end goal when you had so many stumbling blocks and so many obstacles to get a single project finished?
I have some people that I'm a student of their philosophy. And actually, you said 3 years. No, we've actually had projects that taken 13 years or longer.
Wow.
We have the UC-97 U-boat, which we found in 1992, and we still haven't been able to move that forward. We found a TBD Douglas Devastator bomber in 1988, and we still haven't been able to move that forward. But one of the things I do is I find pleasure in something else. Do you remember the old TV program ALF, Alien Life Form?
Yeah.
He explained once that he takes great pleasure in causing other people misery. So what I do is, for every lawyer who, like that lawyer who wanted you to prove that the city of Chicago actually existed,
Yes.
and every bureaucrat that comes up with nonsense like that, I make their life absolutely miserable. I find every way I can, other than breaking the law, to cause them grief and agony. And I get quite a bit of pleasure out of it. And what they realize at some point is they better just do what I'm saying to do, not because it makes sense, but because I'll leave them alone once they actually do it. Now, it does make sense to do it, but they're bureaucrats and lawyers, so they don't deal rationally in the world. So, and the other thing I do is I have so many projects. What I say is I'm making progress somewhere, and whether it's my education projects, my educational outreach, whether it's nuclear energy, whether it's aircraft recovery, or whatever it is. I do a whole bunch of things that keep me at least positive something every day. So otherwise I would be kind of very depressed, but I'm not, because I have something.
So delight in the process, and then also just realizing big picture, there's a lot of things that are going on. And that's actually good advice, I think, for a lot of people, because it's almost like the idea if you throw enough balls in the air, you're going to catch some of them, like just having all those different projects going on. So that, I think, it's great advice to help people, when they're trying to make things happen.
Yeah, I have another analogy. If you have a handful of darts and throw them at the dartboard, some of them are going to score, right?
True.
Some might hit other parts of the wall, but some of them will actually score, right?
That's true. And even if they don't hit the bullseye, there's all types of things that can happen on the board. So, you mentioned, in what you were just talking about, you mentioned education projects, and I noticed in the book as well, which is really cool, that on some of the recovery projects you were able to partner with, I think some looked like universities or maybe they were in trade schools, but you had students working on the actual restoration of the planes.
Yeah, I grew up watching the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau and Wild Kingdom. I thought there were explorers everywhere. And then when we got out and started exploring, we found out there really aren't many explorers. And what we try to do is introduce high school students, stuff like that, to the world of exploration and discovery. So we try to get into the high schools and stuff like that to show them, to show students there's a whole universe to discover. And I tell them, we envy you because you guys may get to explore space. We never could explore space. We wish we could explore space.
Sure.
So that's one of the things we like to do. Up until about 2013, the restoration of the aircraft were done behind closed doors with artisan restorers at the National Naval Aviation Museum, or they were contracted out. What we decided to do with the Kalamazoo Aviation History Museum, it's known as the Air Zoo, we decided that we were going to, and I don't run the Air Zoo, but I collaborate with them extensively. I collaborate with the CEO and the manager of restorations and all their people. We decided to reach out to the public and say, become involved, learn about these things by helping restore. Well, the best way to do that is start with students. So, so our education secretary right now is Betsy DeVos. Well, long before she became education secretary, her and her husband, Richard DeVos, founded a charter school called the West Michigan Aviation Academy, which is about an hour north of Kalamazoo. It's at Grand Rapids. So I sent the two of them a letter that said, help us do this. Well, they liked the idea. So a little while later, after some little bit of conversation, a busload of students and faculty came down and they began the project. Since then, it's expanded to dozens of, from middle school through university level, all across the region. The the city of Chicago military academies, high school military academies are even participating. So they're coming from far away, from 2.5 hours away. They're coming all the way to Michigan State University, Western Michigan University, all sorts of high schools, middle schools. It's just thousands of students have participated. So
that's amazing. There's two things in there that I think are also good lessons for people. One is the whole process by using partnership in the process of creating projects, things get bigger. It's like where 1 + 1 = 10. The other thing too is that idea of you just don't know till you ask. And so just reaching out and asking people if they want to be involved, because you never know. If you don't ask, you'll of course get a no. But it sounds like in a lot of cases, even just with bringing sponsors on for the airplane recovery as well, that just by asking, you're able to tap into other people's passions so that they can participate.
Oh yeah. Well, Goethe said, in action once begun seems to take on a life of its own.
So I encourage people to buy the book. It's not let people buy the book to read the story. You helped uncover an insurance fraud case once by finding a plane. There's the military planes. There are so many stories, and you're a great storyteller, which comes out in how you've written the story of each plane that's covered in the book. So congratulations for that. Thank you so much for having this chat. And again, if people want to buy the book, Amazon, but speaking engagements, things like that, please reach out. One of a kind storyteller for sure.
And thank you for all the nice words. I'll send you the check for that today. Okay?
There you go. Perfect. All right. Thanks, Tara, so much. Talk soon.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bye.
Sure. Bye-bye.